Hello, this is Skylit Lake reading Super Science by thatchickendude. Chapter 41 Accident. I gotta admit, that was one sad story. That poor guy deserves so much better, Hankoyo said with a depressed tone as he and Honeylemon began to clean up for the day. The woman agreed with him while wiping her wet eyes and replied, I agree, but sometimes that way is usually the only or most humane way. At least he's getting a statue. At least, Hankoyo said back with a dry chuckle before divulging, this shows how weak we all really are in the end. We can pretend to be the strongest thing in the world, but ultimately we all bleed the same color and die all the same. Honeylemon stopped what she was doing, stared at the man, and tried to say with a chipper tone, That's insightfully morbid. Suddenly, something caught Hankoyo's attention, and with a bright expression, he said, Oh, Ungliot, what are you doing out of a terrarium, you silly spider? He then reaches down. He picked up the tiny jumping spider on his finger, looking at the little creature reach up its arms at him, brought a smile and more philosophical questions to his mind, as he said them aloud. She probably thinks I'm some sort of god compared to her. I'm sure she's the biggest thing in her world too, but in the end, we're all bugs in the grand scheme of things. Again, insightfully morbid, Honeylemon said with an uncomfortable tone. But I guess that's the rule of life. The large and the strong protect the small and the sweet, he said while nuzzling the small arachnid with his nose. I guess let's stop talking, Honeylemon practically pleaded while quickly excusing herself for the night. Hankoyo placed the tiny creature back in its terrarium and sweetly said, Good night, Ungliot. Sweet dreams. He kissed the spider, closed the cage, turned off the light, and left the room. Once he was gone, Ungliot was left to sit in her thoughts. Despite being a small and unintelligent creature, she had a certain feel for things and a baseline understanding. To her knowledge, Hankoyo wished she was stronger for her safety, but while she was small, she had to rely on her benefactor. But he too was weak and could only do so much. So she needed to get stronger and faster. And she knew how. She knew he was doing something with something strong and strange. All she had to do was get to that thing, and that's precisely what she would do. So she escaped the hidden hole in her home and scurried off the counter, crawling down to the floor and out a very fine crack in the door underneath it. The whole ordeal took an hour to do just at her size, but she had a plan to how to get to her destination that would take her days at her size. So she hitched a ride on one of the many cleaning and security bots. She clung to its metal body and waited until it brought it to her destination. How did she know where to go? Thanks to Hankoyo's pheromone trail. He had been going to that place a lot recently. Once she was there, she hopped off the robot and made her way into the room under the slightest crack in the door. Once again, she had all 8 of her eyes on the prize. The remnants of the strange thing he had been working on were not gone, but the whole thing was gone. That didn't stop her though, as she felt a peculiar energy pulsating from somewhere in the room. Scurrying towards it, she found a large piece that broke off and was hidden away from view. So she went up to the strange thing, laying on top of it, and began sleeping. The following day, Hankayo came in with a more genuine smile and a cup of coffee from his favorite shop, only to be greeted by the sound of discord. Investigating all the activity, he saw Egon nearly lose his mind. He ran around the building between rooms and yelled nonsense. The only thing he could make out was, "Where is he? Where is he?" "Where is who?" Hankayo asked, hoping to help. Egon whipped his head to the man, practically lunged on him in a hug, and exclaimed, "Oh, Hankayo, thank gods, it's your spider." Fear gripped his heart at the statement, and in a panic he grabbed the man back and demanded, "Ungliot, what happened to her? Tell me." Dr. Cluck, who had just came out of the room where the Singularity Soul used to be held, riding a cart, said with a terrified expression, "You're going to want to see this for yourself." She pointed to the room with one of the mechanical arms. Hankayo pushed past them and burst through the room, only to stop when he saw a huge shape sitting in the chamber. "What is that?" he yelled as the thing stood up on many legs and turned towards him, revealing many, many red eyes. Eyes that he recognized all too well before it dawned on him. Looking over the shape of the thing, he asked, "Wait, Ungliot?" The huge spider took one of its legs and brought it up over for him to grab. When he did, he began to tear up as he ran to hug the spider's face and sobbed, "Oh my God, is that you? What happened?" "I think she got the Singularity Soul and turned into this," Egon told him from behind. "But it was destroyed, wasn't it?" Hunky replied. "I guess a large enough piece broke off before we transferred the resurrection quirk. Then she found it, and now here we are," Dr. Orpington told them as her mechanical hand held up the last fragment of the Singularity Soul. Suddenly, dark thoughts ran through the man's mind, and he whipped around, trying to shield the huge animal with his body. He pleaded with tears, "Professor Egon, please don't kill Ungliot, please, she's my best friend." "Calm down, I'm not going to kill your pet," Egon assured him with a groan, making the man calm down. "But we do have to do something. We can't keep her here." He followed up, telling him the facts. "She's not that big," he argues back, him getting an "Are you serious?" expression from his boss. "Why not just throw her into Pacifica? We're dumping Torchwick and a few other crazy things Genus and Cephalopod cooked up together," Dr. Orpington offered. Hunkayo shook his head violently and argued, "No, if she goes there, then I'll never see her." "Then make a teleporter if you really want to see her," said the chicken jokingly with a cluck. Then a bright expression came across the man's face as he exclaimed in excitement, "That's a great idea! I already had some plans on the drawing board, but now I'm going to fully put my attention into it." As they watched the happy man dash off to start his project, leaving the two in the dust, Cluck stated, "Glad to see him so spunky, but What are we gonna do with her in the meantime? Torchwick and the other animals aren't getting transported till next week. Pura and Robbie have already gone out to dig another Singularity Soul, and knowing those two, they'll have something in a day. So once they get back, I guess we can use her as a guard dog for the time being. Egon told her, making Ungoliot chatter her fangs in protest. Egon glared at her and exclaimed, "Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have anything else in mind that a giant spider like yourself can do?" Ungoliot looked like she wanted to say something, but she stopped and just shifted dozens of eyes away. Suddenly she began to produce silk from her abdomen and, with her many legs, spun it into a sheet that she gave to the man. Looking at the dark cloth, he said, "Okay, that's impressive. You want to keep a highly radioactive material that causes immediate changes in a creature with an already giant spider?" Cluck asked him rhetorically. Just then, Professor Genius came into the room with his Purapad and informed them, "No need. I ran some tests and found out she's immune to the radiation, funnily enough." Just before they could all relax, he followed up by saying, "Also, she eats light and uses it to spin webs made from darkness." Egon stops. He looks down at the silk sheets he's carrying, the one he was just given by the same spider they were talking about, realizing it was made of an intangible substance, and asked, "What?" As if nothing else could surprise the man for the day, he heard a pair of fast and familiar footsteps running in the hallway and getting closer. Once they reached the open door, he heard ragged breathing he was all too familiar with. He distinctly heard 2 sets of feet and breathing, but only knew the first by heart. Representing a groan, he asked, "Yes, Izuku, what is it this time?" He trolled off as he turned around, catching his breath with Chopper beside him. Izuku heaved out, "We have a problem." "What kind of?" He fell off while looking at what he was holding in his arms and finished asking, "Problem." A little bundle of white was tucked protectively in his arms, and it unraveled to reveal a small girl with long white hair, red eyes, a single horn on her forehead, ragged clothes and scars. Understanding what was about to happen, Ungoliot crafted a hammock-like seat for the professor and the few others. Sitting down on the web seat, he told them, "Explain everything." Chapter 42. A Strange Find. "Izuku, Izuku!" Chopper exclaimed as he bounded into his office one morning. "Oh, good morning, Chopper," Izuku greeted him as he turned around in his chair. "Let's get breakfast together," Chopper offered in excitement. Izuku smiles and replies, "That sounds great. I forgot to eat before coming here. What do you have in mind?" "Cotton candy!" Chopper exclaimed excitedly without missing a beat while jumping into the air, thinking of his favorite food. Izuku's sweat dropped, but kept smiling as he tells him, That's not a breakfast food, Chopper." "Ice cream? No. Candy? Nope. Chocolate." Izuku sighs as he puts on an exhausted expression, telling him, "You can't have sugar first thing in the morning." Chopper looks down in disappointment, but Izuku quickly changes his tune and informs him, "But you can cheat it with donuts." "Donuts?" Chopper asked inquisitively, seeing he had no idea what he was talking about, Izuku explained. Yeah, they're like little tire-shaped pastries, with just about anything you want on them. I know a place that sells American-style meals. We can get donuts there. Yay! Chopper cheered while jumping up into the air. Before leaving the facility, Izuku donned a simple disguise since he was afraid of being spotted by any more quirk activists. He forgot the lab coat, wearing some of his more plain clothes while wearing sunglasses and a sick mask. After some time, the two boys made their way to the restaurant that Egon frequented. Once they had seated and got their food, Izuku was surprised by what Chopper got. At the same time, he had a plate of eggs, bacon, sausage, toast, hash brown, and a pancake. On the other hand, Chopper had 24 donuts, pancakes with chocolate chips, chocolate syrup, and whipped cream on top, and a massive glass of chocolate milk. Izuku was equally impressed and disgusted by the amount and how fast he ate it. It was like watching a shonen protagonist scarf down food after a very long battle. From the amount of sugar alone he was consuming, his orange juice looked too sweet to drink. But no matter what, the reindeer didn't stop or slow down. Easy, Chopper, you're gonna choke. Izuku tried to warn him until he stopped and made a face. Izuku sighed as he watched his little friend chug down the chocolate milkshake to help pass the food down. Told you so, he groaned. After taking a deep breath from the food going down, he gasped before exclaiming with tears in his eyes, "But it's so good!" Izuku sighed as he picked up his food, watching the little animal scarf down his breakfast's remain. After a bit of silence, Izuku inquired, "Hey, Chopper, why did you want to become a doctor?" At this point, Chopper had polished off all his plates and looked down at the table while answering, "It's a bit personal, but I'll tell you if you tell me." Izuku nods. Chopper tentatively sips his chocolate milk while saying, "It goes back to my earliest memories." Izuku almost regrets asking now, knowing he was in for an origin story. "I was once a normal wild reindeer when a strange gas hit my herd. I found out later it was the government trying a bioweapon that could potentially cause the awakening of quirks inside a dormant body. Out of everyone in the herd, I was the only one affected. At least until I hit 4. Chopper stopped him momentarily. Stopping Izuku momentarily, inquired, 4 in human or reindeer years? Chopper blinks twice, thinks, then says, "Yes?" Anyway, I gained self-awareness one day and my body changed. With this, plus my small size, I was kicked out of the herd. But being able to take a human form, the locals tried to hunt me down, until I found someone special. He trails off with a sad, nostalgic smile before continuing. His name was Hiroruk. He was my mentor and father. He gave me my love of medicine and my goal. But that goal was only strengthened when something awful happened." Izuku leaned in, more curious than before, as Chopper withheld emotions and exclaimed, "Hiruluk became ill with a disease that had no cure. I was young and dumb as I tried to find a cure, and I accidentally stumbled upon a medical book on poison plants. So I went out to find it, found my old herd, nearly died, and brought him back the mushroom. He cried, hugged me, ate it, and he trailed off while tears ran down his face. Izuku saw this and almost panicked as he told him, "You don't have to finish that. But why did you think a mushroom would be his cure-all?" Chopper sniffed back his feelings as he told him, "Hiruluk showed me his stamp of honor, a Jolly Roger. He called it his calling card of health, so that when anyone sees it, they would see only the health on the horizon." A skull and crossbones? Izuku realized where the mistake was. Chopper nods and finishes. "Then Doctrine took me in as her apprentice, and we came here." After breathing deeply to calm himself, he asked, "What about you?" Izuku laughed dryly and admitted, "Not half as bad as yours, but I wanted to be a hero since I was little, but couldn't." Chopper blinks in confusion, then remembers, "Oh, that's right. You're quirkless, aren't you?" Izuku nodded sadly and explained, "I was picked on and bullied mercilessly by all, even by my own best friend." This fact surprised Chopper, and his mouth went open in shock as Izuku continued, "But I never gave up until I did, and tried to end it all." This shocked him again. He didn't have anything to say, being winded by the information given to him. "But Egon found me, saved me, and gave me new hope. I'm grateful to him forever," Izuku told him with a sad, nostalgic smile. "I feel the same about Hiruluk and Doctrine," Chopper agreed. After a very long session of silence between them, Izuku finally finished his food and offered, "Let's go back to the facility. It has been a while." "Yeah," Chopper agreed, looking and sounding just as sad as he was. After Izuku paid for the meal, the two began to walk back to the office in silence at the re-emergence of their old wounds. Mixed with regret for asking about it, they were stopped in the street out of nowhere. "Hey you," a voice called out, causing the two to run around and see a guy approaching them as he asked, "You're that Dr. Midoriya guy, aren't you?" Izuku got a bit nervous, but played it off as calmly as he could, waving his hands and cracking his voice, answering, Sorry, I think you have mistaken me. Well, I got to..." Before he could run off with Chopper, he ran into someone who was discreetly behind him and followed 3 other people blocking their path and surrounding them. One of the people turned their hound into a blade and sliced off his sick mask and sunglasses, revealing his face. They all sneered at him with sinister smiles as the blade guy said, "Nah, you're the guy, the quirkless little rat who thinks he can have such a high station in our society." "Look, I don't want any trouble," Izuku said defensively, raising his hands. "But we do, you see," one of the other guys said, while turning their hands into guns. "What do you even want from me? What have I ever done to you?" Izuku exclaimed. "You exist simply as that. Your whole existence is a complete anomaly of nature," the gun-handed man told him in a half yell. And we, the card-carrying members of the MLA, have a duty to get rid of scum like you, said the sword-armed person. Chopper jumped before Izuku and proclaimed, "Keep away from Izuku, he's a great person. You're the one who's scum. If you want to get him, you'll have to get it through me first." "Chopper," Izuku attempted to dissuade him, but one of the thugs told him, "That's the plan. The MLA also deals with unnatural mutants like you, Tanuki." Chopper looked down at the ground as a gun-handed man pointed his weapon at them, gripping his hooves and saying with an angry, shaking voice, I'm a reindeer." Just before the gunman could fire at them, Chopper yelled, "Guard point!" And suddenly, Izuku was swallowed by a sea of light brown fur as he heard gunshots go off, only for the sound of something bouncing being heard. He managed to get his face out of the fur and saw Chopper's face sticking out of it. Pushing against the fur body, Izuku noticed how springy it was, but still so dense. "Whoa, I didn't know you could do that." "I can do way more," Chopper told him as the huge fur ball receded into him. He put his hooves together in a small opening shape and looked through it. He called out, "Scope." Chopper looked at their assailants and then said, "Aha!" The gunman shook himself out of his shock and said, pointing his weapon at them, he announced, "You'll pay for this, raccoon dog." Chopper ran up to the man and suddenly changed forms again, yelling, "Heavy point!" He transformed from a small reindeer human to a huge man-like creature that vaguely resembled Bigfoot, with a more human version of Chopper's face, formed with bulging muscles. Catching the man off guard by his transformation, he turned his hand into a fist and bringing it down on his head, yelled, "Heavy gong!" The man spat out blood from the crushing blow to his head and passed out. Chopper turned around and ran to two men, making them cower by his huge form. Chopper then transformed again and called, "Walk point!" Chopper then turned into what looked like a regular reindeer and charged at the two men at top speed. Launching off his feet, he transformed again, this time into what looked like a teenage version of Chopper with antlers 3 times his size. He yelled out while crashing into the men, "Horn point! Horn cannon!" Ramming into the two of them with great force, they flew across the street before slamming into the wall, where they both passed out. "How the hell is he doing that?" one of the goons announced as he turned his head into an old-time cannon and yelled, "Take this!" The shots were fired, and the shocked Chopper appeared to be sucked into the attack. "Got him!" cheered the man at the smoking spot. Suddenly, the air began to stir, and out popped a very unusually shaped Chopper that looked like an egg. Taking a familiar stance, he said, "Kung Fu point!" Chopper then bounced towards the cannon man and began to hit him with a flurry of Kung Fu attacks until he falls over in a second from the barrage of blows. However, he didn't notice another goon coming from the side. But Izuku does and yells, "Chopper, look out!" Chopper turns his head and sees the man fast approaching with malicious intent, until a spiderweb comes from nowhere and tarps the man against the building, saving the reindeer's life. Surprised by this, he looks around to see who saved him, only to see Izuku standing at the opposite end of the tack, with his hand stretched out and webs coming out of it. His mouth shut open in surprise, and he babbled, "Izuku, what's—" "Spiderweb splinter. Egon told me not to leave the lab without a splinter," Izuku explained quickly, before pointing behind him to where the giant person was caught in the webs trying to free himself. "Okay, listen. This guy is too big to take it down, but I have an idea," Izuku quickly said as Chopper smiled. The giant troll man finally breaks free from the webs and looks around to see an idly standing Izuku. He loomed over him while stating, "Ha! All alone, just like the quirkless runt you are." He then quickly surveys the area and asks him, "Hey, where did Raccoon go?" Izuku pouts and tells him, "He's not a tanuki, he's a reindeer," Chopper announces as he bursts from the ground with horn point. Suddenly, the ground gives out under the giant man, and he falls onto his chin, where he knocks it so hard it stuns him. From there, Chopper turns into walk point, grabs Izuku from behind him, and runs around the giant while Izuku secures himself down with more webs. After going around twice, they finally stop. Izuku jumps off Chopper as he turns back to his brain point. "Now, will you hold tight until the cops get here?" Izuku tells the criminal before turning to Chopper and telling him, "Chopper, we did it!" Chopper seemed a bit perplexed by this until he realizes and gets just excited as he is, exclaiming, "We did it? Yeah, we did it!" Chopper then jumps into Izuku's arms while they both dance, spinning, laughing, and cheering at their victory. The troll just looks at them in frustration. Izuku puts down the reindeer and praises him. "And you were amazing! How did you do that?" "You thought it was amazing?" Chopper asks in confusion before he gets giddy and dances whilst circling him. "Ah, don't be stupid, you idiot. You can't praise me. I won't be affected by all your affection, you big dum-dum." "Yeah, you are showing it." Izuku's sweat drops as he watches his tone and body not match his words. Just then, the troll person broke free from his web restraint and picked himself out of the hole, looming over the two while boasting, "That wasn't half bad, kids, but it'll take more than that to keep me down." "Oh crap!" Izuku yelled while cowering. "Any last words?" the troll asked him as he smiled with sharp teeth. Chopper then reached into his hat, pulled out an orange-colored ball, popped it into his mouth, and said while crunching down on it, "Rumble Ball." At that moment, Chopper began to grow and grow and grow until he was outsized the troll man. His antlers grew large and twisted, his body hairy, and his form like that of a twisted deception of a Wendigo. What the?" the troll cried in shock, looking up at the mountain. Chopper roared and reeled his hand back, yelling, "Cloven Road's palm!" Chopper hit the troll square in the face with his open hoof hand and knocked him down so hard that he went down in one blow. The huge monster then turned around and loomed over Izuku, who was starting to stand idly in the mix of shock and horror. Gulping, he cautiously asked, "Chopper?" Chopper smiles and says back, "It's okay, Izuku." He quickly calmed down, then got excited and called out, "Whoa! I don't even know where to start, but you're so cool." Once again, his eyes light up, and he gets all giddy and dances while insulting him. "Oh, stop it, you fool. You can't make me feel all giddy over your compliments." Izuku laughs awkwardly before he feels the ground underneath him start to crack and give in. He looks down and sees the fast-forming cracks and exclaims, Chopper, I think we should get going." Chopper stops dancing and looks down. Seeing the ground give out under him, he panics and turns back into his brain point. Even with the weight reduction, Chopper's landing on his feet was enough to finally make the ground break apart and send the two of them into the sewer system of Japan. Luckily, the fall wasn't very hard or long, so they didn't get hurt, especially since the water below them broke some of their fall. Izuku got up while rubbing his back and complaining, "Well, that was unpleasant." Chopper also rises from the water and shakes himself off, apologizing, "Sorry, I always forget how much Monster Point weighs." Izuku tries his best to wring out the sewage and tells him, "Well, let's get out of here and back to the lab before Egon freaks out." "I'll think he'll do that anyway when he finds out," Chopper tells him before his ears perk up, and he says, "What was that?" "What?" Izuku asks back. "I heard something," Chopper tells him, making Izuku stand on edge. The reindeer looks around with his ears before pointing to a spot and shouting, "There!" Izuku took hold of the splinter and called out while holding his hand and demanded, "Come out! I don't want to hurt you." Just then, a small child peeks around from the corner, and her face wet with tears as Izuku calmed down and said, "It's just a child." "Thank goodness," Chopper sighs with relief. Izuku puts his hands down and holds them out while going down to a level and says in a calmer tone, "Hey, it's okay. I'm not gonna hurt you. You just scared me, that's all." Bit by bit, the girl came out of her hiding spot and walks towards Izuku through the sludge until she finally rests her tiny hand on his larger one. Then she tears up and asks, "Help me." "Of course I'll help you, don't be afraid," he tells her while taking her into his arms and asking, "Did you lose your mummy?" "If she did, I think Doctrine would like to have a word with her foot into her face," Chopper tells him while looking over the girl's less favorable conditions. "What's a mummy?" the girl asks back. The two boys' eyes widen with shock, and Chopper stated, "That's not a good sign." "Then what's wrong?" Izuku prompts her further. She sniffles before saying vaguely as she looked behind her, He's coming." "Who?" Chopper inquired. "The bad man with the mask," she exclaimed. Izuku pets the panicking girl's head and reassuringly says, "Don't worry, I'll protect you from that man. We'll take you to a safe place." "We will?" Chopper exclaimed. "Yes, of course we will," Izuku replied firmly. "What's your name?" he asked the girl gently. Eri." Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Super Science is back. I'm pretty sure I explained it to one of you guys in the comments, but the way I'm going to do these 40 plus fanfics is that I do 40 chapters in like one time period of time, then take a break from it to allow me to do other fanfics and do it, and for you guys not to get bored overly. Then I'll start it back up, ideally by like 3 or 4 months. That way, it's like fresh. People can have it, listen to it without getting too bored, or especially those who come to my channel repeatedly. But yeah, this video is going to be released after I finish my Long Night in the Valley series, but I haven't recorded the last few chapters of it, so I don't know how that's going to go. But I hope you guys enjoyed that one, and I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Tell me if you like the new thumbnail and picture. And so I'll see you guys next time. Bye! Bonus. Here is 12 seconds of me making villager noises. Ha, 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 ha.